Welcome to Loosen Up Your Painting podcast, the podcast for creatives making their art and making a difference to their lives and the world. We discuss how to improve your art, your lifestyle, and grow your creative business. I'm your host, Malcolm Dewey from malcolmdeweyfineart.com, and let's begin.
Artists, would you like to join Malcolm each month for a live painting demonstration and tutorial? You can also try out the painting for yourself and receive a critique of your work. Plus watch the recordings of all the lessons in HD whenever you want to. Then share your work and chat to other participating artists in the community. All of this is possible when you join Malcolm's Artists Live channel. It is an investment that will pay you back in painting pleasure many times over. Find out more and preview the Artists Live channel, then join in the fun. Details on malcolmdeweyfineart.com.
It's my pleasure to introduce my guest today, Michaell Magrutsche. Welcome, Michaell.
Hi, Malcolm. Good to see you.
Great to have you on the show. And I'm looking forward to getting into the meat of the show. But before we do that, let's just introduce our guests to you. You could tell me a little bit about yourself, where you live, and what you do.
My name is Michaell Magrutsche. I'm born in Vienna, Austria, and I moved to California when I was 18, around 1820. And then I'm now in Laguna Woods, which is right next to Newport Beach and Laguna Beach. And I'm an artist since I'm 6 years old. That was the only way where I actually could exist because I couldn't fit into any systems. I was always the outsider. And arts community was the only way where I basically could exist. And it made me also be, of purpose. I discovered I unveiled my craft and my abilities through art, and I went from literally from DJing to producer fashion shows to television. Worked with Robert Evans from Godfather and Chinatown. Co-produced with him. Was Arts Commission of Newport Beach. So like everything in my life was about creativity. And I was 35 when I wrote a resume for a show or something. And I realized I didn't even call myself an artist because I wasn't successful, meaning, accolades and everything. And with 35, I realized, I said, I really did. I am an artist. And then I owned it because I realized it. And that's what I mean with unveiling. Art helps you unveil your growth. It helps you really see who you are. And then I talk to other people, say, do you have the same thing? And most artists says, yeah, they don't call themselves artists because they're not successful in the system. They didn't sell $100,000 paintings or make music that was all over the world.
Yes, it's interesting. You say you knew you were an artist from the age of 6, and I can say exactly the same thing. It's my earliest memory of drawing, and I got attention from from the adults who looked at my work. But I'm assuming also from what you say that you are entirely self-taught.
Yeah, because I couldn't fit into schools. I couldn't fit into schools. So I had to, if you want to DJ, where can you go learn to DJ? That was the first experience in terms of being in society, You had to. If you want to play an instrument, you had to play an instrument. And what I learned in instruments, I started to play the guitar for 2 years. And, in our age, you had to learn a classical guitar before you even can look at the electric guitar. And I was completely failure, completely frustration, but I got something wonderful out of it because then I went to percussion, and that's where it hits. So so this is also what I'm writing in my in the books about art education. It's when you are young, don't spend a lot of money on one instrument or lessons. Just let the kid try out, because the kid has to find what is good and what is fun to me, because art without fun doesn't work. You cannot create anything if you don't enjoy it or have pleasure with it, and then you won't do it. We can do it 24 hours. I mean, I wake up in the morning, do art, and go to bed with art, when because that's the power of art you know
Being self-taught, I could say the same thing as well. So there we go. And I do also believe that being self-taught is a big advantage. But there are a lot of artists that feel without that education or that formal art education, they don't have a real chance. But you say it's just the opposite. You probably have a better chance by just actually learning in the real world.
I think the reason why is not it's not obvious, really, because the reason why, in the system, you're creating a product for the system, a song, a painting, whatever, and you create it for the system. So when you go to art school, they kind of want to teach you skill, which is great. I think that the skill that they teach you is, if you want to do a landscape and they show me how to do shadows and everything, that's awesome. But the art education, because art is not just a business, the power is in the creation. And when you don't have anybody to show you, you have to discover how you project your personality, your being into the physical. And when you're taught, no, you have to draw, which was with me. I was horrible in art education. I mean, in drawing, I think everybody got to get an A, and I got like a C, because I look at a tree, and I did like 2 or 3 years of nude painting. What do you call that in nudes? Yeah, yeah. Yeah. And I was forcing myself to copy the shape, and then I discovered, literally at the last when that course was out after 3 years or something, I discovered in the last, I would say, half 6 months, I discovered that I have to make an image of that body in my voice, and then it worked perfectly. People loved what I did, and before I tried, and everything was off. All the other things was off, and I don't know if you know, I also was dyslexic, very dyslexic. So, I, di- but then I found that, and I would have never found it without art. I would have never had that self confidence and say, okay, because I got also the feedback. So the feedback of society was, oh, that's great, it's awesome, and I didn't care if my muscles were perfect, or if my facial Yes. Structure were perfect.
You talk about the confidence and the belief in yourself, and that is a huge hurdle for so many artists. Um, we've spoken about the education side of it. We can get through that. What other obstacles, or I suppose there are many obstacles or mental blocks for artists to make some sort of breakthrough? How how would you speak to an artist like that who thinks they're not ready, thinks that they won't be able to survive, that they won't get recognition, that they won't get a gallery looking after them? All of those traditional issues that you may identify as part of the system, how do you explain that to this artist? What should be their approach?
I think the first, if any artist that I mentor or anybody that comes to me, I make, number one, make him aware it's a consciousness issue, I think, and that the art that we talk about art is only a business. The society, any system talks about art. I was assuming there was this other part because I was experienced the creation, and that's what I think the big misunderstanding is. You feel as an artist, and it draws you more and more in, because even now 95, 97% of artists are poor, and more people become artists because it is so powerful, but we don't look at the creation process. We only evaluate the out of the creation process the result, and that's like creating I always say that's like creating a bike, you know. uh, and when somebody says, oh, I need to, why do I pay you $5,000? And then usually a plumber would say, I put a bathtub in, he can define the values. Artists cannot define the values. Artists values because they have never defined themselves over generations. So the starving artist became a moniker. It's just, yeah, it's like, we have never defined ourselves. So what are artists saying? I got the prize. I have this gallery. So all other things become more important, the system, than they themselves. Even though they're the magician, they create the value that a viewer or an art lover, when what happens when an art lover falls in love with a painting? He sees the physical manifestation of a non-physical thought or an inspiration. So he recognizes that in himself. And art is in all of us, because you wouldn't have anybody paying $1 million for a wing of a museum or art education or whatever, if the people, because they don't pay that to a plumber association. They don't donate $1 million. And that's what I'm saying. That's everybody feels that. And that's why I call art is the inherent superpower of human, but we are not aware of it because we are focusing on the product. And artists have never defined their value. So they say it's all about accolades. So if the system says you're good, then you must be good. But that has nothing to do with reality. As you know, there's brilliant artists that never make it. There's brilliant scientists that never make it. There's brilliant whatever nurses that never make it, medical doctors that never make it, and they're brilliant. So it's extreme with artists because it's not defined, and it's not, there's too much art. Also, that's another thing. And the only way to get, if you want the system, and this is I think that's the interface that we don't comprehend. There is humans and nature, that's our living beings that were not created by us. And there is a static systems or systems that are created by us with our creativity, but they are not needing to sleep. They don't have a biorhythm. They're not needing to go in nature. They just need to grow, grow, grow. So it's not bad that there's an economic system, but it doesn't serve us the way it is now. We need to rethink our relationships to system and have systems that adapt to humanity, because without humanity, there is no systems. But without systems, there is humanity, because we are limitless in our creativity. We're going to survive in one way or another, which you know.
Okay, so the artist or the young artist listening to this has got to understand that self-awareness is not, and creating and creativity is not inconsistent with making a living. You're not a sellout if you make a living, but if that is the only thing you're interested in, you may lose your self-awareness.
I think you have a choice. I mean, you have a choice if you're aware. I think you can do business if, but the business. How can you know? Even if you put out a bicycle, it might sell, it might not. So you have to leave that up to choice. I mean, look what Jeff Koons does, or Damien Hirst, or all these super sellers. They they pump the market, do it like a company, and they use all their creativity in making business. They are artists in business. They use their creativity to create a product that is liked by the maximum amount of people. And as you know, an artist needs two or three patrons and can live because they're falling in love with this patron. So it's if you have a real, I mean, I know galleries that have literally they have one, two, they have three branches: New York, Palm Springs, LA, and they have about four patrons that support them for the last thing because they buy everything they have, they show. So you can do either. You have where you put your creativity, and how honest can you live. I mean, if you say, "Hey, I think I'm not good in creating something fresh, new, me, my voice. I want to do first money and then." I mean, that's your choice. You can look at the market and say what sells, what patterns sell, and then create out of reshuffling these patterns, aesthetic patterns, uh, and trends, and create art like that. But the thing is, the market is another life. It has its own life, meaning very short term. I mean, look at there's artists like what's his name? Like he was like Kincaid, but he was uh, uh, another artist, and he's flooded everything with cruise ships, with everybody. He went on cruise ships, he signed art, he whatever, and then like 5 years ago, or 5 or 10 years ago, somebody came to me, and because they know I'm art, and I know a lot about the function of art and how it works, and he says, and I had at least three people coming and said, I paid $25,000 for this, and it's not my style anymore. I don't want it. What do I do? And I had to say, go on Etsy, because how do you appraise it? And I said, go on Etsy and put that name in. And the people came back to me. They said they couldn't believe it. I mean, it was just like there was so much about that artist, you know. And so this is all the risks you have with a regular business. You have time 10. So it's better to create a bicycle, get money from creating a bicycle, or a widget, or uh, another iPhone or whatever. It's better to do that, make money, and then do your art. I think it's 10 times as hard to do art for the market. I think that's big. And even though now you have AI, you have things that's all created on average. You got to create something that is mind blowing today. Because also another thing I found when I'm working with artists, and when I'm at the art festival or whatever, they all believe the walls of all customers are white, and they just need their painting to put on that wall. That is, see, those things, that this is what I call the smart of art. That's what my last book is. You got to be aware of this. If you want to be an artist, you got to be aware not of how to sell better, because everybody teaches you, even artists. The only money that it's made is teaching you how to sell. So get more. And so if you have Instagram, they say, no, get Facebook. No, get TikTok. No, you know what? Make a video you creating. Make this. It's just all about the market getting attention. And you're not growing. You're not growing as a human. You're growing by, you know, being on the poverty level, just constantly, including, me. I was doing this for a long time.
Yeah, there was a stage maybe about 10 years ago where the mantra was that you had to follow your passion and everything would be just fine. And then that sort of changed, and it became you can follow your passion, but don't give up your day job. And then after COVID, most people started losing their day jobs, and now there is this probably a real glut in the market with art that hasn't been sold. Maybe it is the perfect time for artists to get back to that self-awareness you're talking about and find a higher meaning or a deeper meaning. And if you can just comment on that, and also how does the artist find their their voice, the true voice, not the economics?
Okay, I have started in 2015. I have started in Laguna Beach a movement that's called the Self-Aware Art Movement. which was basically the start of all my work. This drew me into all my work about the voice. And I was one of the first guys that even used that term all the time for paintings, music, everything, which is basically a reflection of your essence, of out of gender, out of race, out of culture. It is Malcolm and it's Michaell. So I'm trying to find what is Michaell, you know, uh, non-gender. What is my essence? And there's a process I developed, and I can send that to you, and you can forward it to your listeners. Um, there's a process you go through because I want artists. It doesn't help me if I survive and nobody else. I want the I want to see the consciousness, and this is the best voice process that I found. And I've 100 graduates, and they're all happy. You can look on my YouTube video and all this stuff, what people say about it. Because I don't look at art the normal way. I'm self-taught and I don't fit, So I have to get the most out from the creation. And I think one thing is the voice. So when you look at my paintings, because what the voice is, it's the interface between the growth and the unveiling of your essence that you have when you create. That's the valuable, and it's the static market can use that expression and put it into keywords, put it into, can actually sell it. So even if you can define your voice, first of all, you learn who you are, and you get self-confidence by doing that process, because all of a sudden you don't have to think, why should I buy your painting for 100,000 you say, hey, I mean, you go in a room and there's my painting. You don't look at the room, you look at the painting. That's me. But I'm very, as you already see, I'm very outgoing, a loudmouth, whatever you want to call me. I'm a loud person. So my art is very loud. So, but I can say that to you, and you in a system, if you have nothing about things, I say, okay, I see he's loud, and his art is loud too. And there's the connect. And then a person can say, yeah, do I want loud out? And see, then it's up still to the buyer, because it says, am I wanting loud art that draws all the things of my interior design, where I spent millions of dollars to get my interior design? I don't want them to look at Michael's art only. But if you want a focal point and you want that experience where you look at my art and then from looking at my art go and see the interior, that's, yeah, which never matches. I would never, but that's up to you. But that's what I'm saying is the voice. You are absolutely right, Marco. The voice is the first step. First is consciousness of there's two things: the selling and the creation. And the selling and the creation don't fit together. They don't fit, because we are living humans with biorhythms, seasons, feeling better and worse, and needing to sleep, and the market doesn't. And the market is very short circle. It's a trend. It's the latest. It's the whatever, and you need to be aware of that. But to communicate between those two is voice, is defining your voice.
I think it sounds also that the when the artist has developed or found their voice, as you say, there's a greater sense of authenticity and believability that perhaps the collector will become aware of, or as you mentioned yourself, you describe yourself as a loud person, and your art corresponds with that as well, and you are not trying to hide who you are. And I think a lot of artists maybe just trying to create a persona, or trying to just create an image that isn't authentic. It doesn't come through with their art.
Very well said, Malcolm. Very well said. Because this systems don't tell the truth. They have no wisdom. So people are so frustrated, which you see now in the world, right? And artists are, I think, the ones that can actually be guideposts for truth, for honesty, for self acceptance. I am who I am. But see, if the system always comes in and tries to take that away, then that's a hard thing. But the image, you need to say, it's not, it doesn't care what I think about me. Because there was times I hated myself that I was loud. You know what I mean? Because the system says don't be loud. You know, so you hit the point. You just right, because it's not art. Look at, I'm just saying Basquiat from, and I'm not a specialist in Basquiat or in art history or anything, but that kid was so disturbed, and the reason that he was surviving was by expressing himself, not Warhol, not other people. He expressed himself on the art. And look, this is one of the most expensive sellers, because people, humans, we're still the superpower. Humans are the intimacy and everything, and they feel the trueness of his humanness in that, even if it's defunct in court according to society, even if it's not right according to society. But people that, and mostly people that are wealthy, that work a lot, that it's all about money, they need that genuinity. They need to feel, okay, there is a real person. Not, it starts perhaps first, oh, he's so screwed up, I'm so good. But then they find something more in it, because the truth, and then they find the humanity in it, right, Markham? We know it, we know it because we deal with it all the time by creating. But these people don't. And they get to shine a light on, in the disturbance, they shine a light on, on the.
That makes me think of the issue of trust as well. Um, I remember seeing a video not too long ago. I think it was Damien Hirst. He was standing in front of 20 canvases and just flicking paint on each one. And I was looking at the comments on the video, and for the most part, people were saying, this guy is a shyster.
But even if it doesn't matter, he's an artist in selling. Yeah, yeah, I understand what you're saying. There's nothing new.
It's not my personal point of view as such, because creating is creating. But I think a perception amongst a lot of the public is, hang on, that's too easy. He must be cheating.
He's not. It's funny, his process. When I look at his process is, he did the dots. He was, and I think what's with Damon is he creates a project, he creates a project a product that he likes. He's a product guy. He's like a guy that creates bicycles, right? He creates, and I think that's totally okay if he's conscious. If he doesn't want to be the airy fairy, I'm interacting with godly creation. If he says I'm creating a product, fine, and you're an artist still, because you need to create everybody's an artist, because you need to create a product that sells in the thing. And he did these circles, which, by the way, is not his original, but he liked that product of a. And we all, there's the interaction with all humans. We take from others and go further. But there's a 1937 artist that did circles exactly like he started with the circles, with the little dots. And now the dots came. Actually, I think his work is now more genuine, because it becomes the flick of the wrist, of his wrist, the flick of, putting it on, versus having assistants making concentric circles and painting them. But from the factory, he had all the assistants and and he just said, okay, that red is a little too high, make it darker. So, or I mean, he didn't even touch the basically painting. And now, as a matter of fact, and because of COVID and all this stuff, he touches physically the painting. And I think that has more value than a factory,
Now, you've also written your book. You mentioned a bit earlier the smart of art, and you also got your own podcast as well. Just tell us a bit about how your how you've written about and describe your art as a means of helping yourself, healing, restoration. How pivotal has that process been for you personally?
So everybody that writes book writes them for themselves. It's like creating. Literally, the value of creating a book, creating a painting, creating music is to learn about yourself. And you get so basically it's a reflection instead of going to in a system to somebody else. You learn in the reflection of what it is. And I could never understand why so many artists are poor. And that made me to do the last book. First of all, was a previous book was how to place art, because when I was a public arts commissioner, I saw sculptures and I saw un, uh, the lack of knowledge of there is like a skill of how to hang a painting where it can engage you. And for me, it was not, because there's 15, when you go into Google, there's 15 different heights that you put a painting. And I brought it to an essence. I said, if you can keep walking into the painting, then you connect, and you can test this yourself. If you hang it too high, it will all of a sudden it will cut this connecting will cut. If you hang it too low, it's good. It's funny. It only happens if a painting is hung too high, because then art becomes more. There's also psychological things why it's more intimidating. People are intimidated by art anyway. So the height it's very simple, but I had to write a book to figure that out, you know. And I figure out that light you can like there were statues at night, they were not lit. I said, you're taking 80% of the engagement factor if you don't light a statue at night, in a city, So so you're working daylight, and then at night there's no light. So the good lighting of a statue, brings out the spirit and is engaging because people love it. So what was the question? I lost the question. Oh, got it. So I had to learn in the smart of art. I went to, I'm basically telling you the same things that I'm telling you here, just more on a broader base. I look at curating, I look at placing art, I look at acquiring art, I look at selling art from a human perspective, not from the system. From the system, you can read up anywhere, but where to connect, because art is inherent in us. And how do you connect with the art buyer, and how you appreciate your own work, also. And that's why I say there's the art creation. I call it the essence of art, the knowing the function of the essence of art, and the business. And the podcast is, I said, how can I do change generation to have that awareness and not suffer? So I said, because we also, I think artists need to be really aware, and that makes you getting right out of your poverty energy of your self-pity and victim. We are the stewards of the being of human beings, meaning we when you go into the art community, there is no race, gender. We all work on this project, we get it done. Look at any theater production or whatever. Yeah, are there egos? Yeah, there will always be egos, but basically it's we together, we create something, and it doesn't matter if your gender, race, sexuality, it doesn't matter. Nobody asks a painter, is this painter gay, black, or you don't even know. And that's what I'm saying, that's the power of art. We don't even know who painted that. Could be a 12-year-old child or a 90-year-old homosexual gay guy or whatever. It's what that big. That's why I'm saying the system defines you, and then it becomes reality. And we are humans, and humans is the number one, and number two must be our nature, because that's our habitat, and both we haven't created. And that's why we need to be number one, and to keep that through, to keep that legacy alive to the next generation of artists, for humanity. That's why art is the stewards of keeping the human being. We are human doings. You need pulse. You need to do. Yeah, but we are the human being alive. The essence, what it means to be human, and that's why the 20 to 30 seconds just quotes and questions just to make you aware, like they become aware when they listen to us.
I think you're absolutely right about art being the essence of human. Clearly, we create things out of nothing, and that is a form of art. But is there now such a disconnection with in the general population, such a distraction going on that art just seems a frivolous sideshow?
It is in the system. Yeah, art is in the system. That's why I'm saying you cannot assess the value of what art in the system, because it's a product. In the system, it's a product. And you say, oh, we're in a crisis. The artists also believe that. They believe that I wouldn't be poor. So we need to find what art is, and that's why I wrote the book, and that's why I do the podcast. I mean, I've 300 quotes that I created, and I'm not finding it. I'm just unveiling it. Like in our discussion, you say something, I say something. Oh, that's another clarity that you have or I have, and that's why my podcast is, the art, also the Smart of Art podcast, the power and art of creativity. You get it on any platform. It's free. It's 20 to 30 seconds. It has a quote and a question. Just that you start reflecting your humanness and that interaction. I would recommend that every artist listen to it, because you take that quote, that 20 seconds you spend, and you take the question, and if it doesn't do anything to you, just discard it. But if it does something, then allow it to, and by you being conscious and thinking about it, even in a completely different way that I do, we creating a new consciousness as a whole on this globe for humanity, and for first for artists, and then for humanity. Because the artist, I say, once you're conscious of something, you can't go back. If somebody that listens to this podcast says, no, selling is the holy grail, there's all the magic in it, you can't do that, especially an artist, if he listens to this podcast, for example, and I think that's why, I think that's the only, I couldn't come up with a better solution, because I'm going to podcasts. I mean, you're one of, many that I go to, as many, because I want to distribute. I have nothing to sell. I want to distribute. I mean, you can hire me for consulting or whatever, but or lecturing, or education, but I'm selling basically a consciousness. Because I think we don't need to buy more technology. We don't need to get more apps. We don't need to be on more websites. I mean, actually, artists are better than business people that I worked with social media and everything else. But they can't come to creating art, because they're creating social media, and they're putting all their energy in social media, into the system, and they don't even they live off likes. They don't, it's a, I know a guy that has 3 likes, 2 likes, no likes on YouTube. And I know he's the highest paid coach that works for the 1%, for the 1% of humans. So it has nothing to do with numbers, is a system conditioning. The more numbers you have, look at your purse. If where is your effort? Where's your return? I mean, you're giving this gift of experience reality, and that's why humans are also better, because they go to nature, and that's why they all paint nature, because they see the prettiness, they see the this wonderful place that we live at, and that's what's the humane. You can't buy, it's priceless. We play with the priceless, you know.
In the past, I guess in ancient times, artists were part of the society and had that important function, that sacred function, and then that just progressed over time. And at some point, probably in the last 2 centuries, it's become a commodity. And what I think what we find is the biggest struggle is simply trying to get the the non-artist to appreciate art, or that's such a very simple thing to say, but it's not just enough for all artists to get together and tell ourselves how important we are. How do we get that message across to people, so they can once again connect with the importance of art?
Okay, this is awesome too because I wrote that in my book. In the old times, they were exactly what you said. People were a part of your society. But what kind of part of society were you? Unless you were one of Damien Hirst's. Damien Hirst and Jeff Koons are part of the society, and they're highly revered. By art connoisseurs, not perhaps, but they are highly revered. So they were allowed to, somebody saw, they can draw, and then there was no internet, there was no Netflix, there were nothing, and they said, hey, come and live in my castle in one of my 500 rooms, and the kitchen is going to give you some scraps, and you can survive with your wife and paint for me, paint me. And then they told them, paint me on a bigger horse, make me more taller, whatever, and or make the music that makes me happy, and so it's we were contract workers all the time. And I think it shifted to, because, and this is what we really get, this is really deep, and it goes, we shifted to art was first a part of humanity, and humanity was kind of balanced, society and humanity, yeah, except, woman and man gender. But then it took over more and more, and more people became artists. And so I remember my time, even because my uncle was a master teacher at the academy in Vienna. He was poor, and I know that because my parents bought for a couple dollars his etchings or whatever, and his paintings, and he needed to sell. I know he was, but it, when you reached a certain age at that time, and somebody mentored you, which, or you had friends to work together, because artists are still unbeatable when they work together. um, you There were less artists and more audience. Now there is almost everybody does art in some way or form, and it's too much. Before, it was like, there were 5 artists, and you had to wait for a painting 2 years, 3 years. It's like John Curran now. You have to wait for a painting to get it, and it was a status symbol. Still, it wasn't like the love of art, but from the market perspective, it was different. And now you have everything. It's like, when I created business cards for $4,000 or $5,000, now you can get a business card that is created with the AI, and you can do it yourself and it even looks good, for $60. You get a branding for $60. How can you? So that is a consciousness issue, not. And how can we sell ourselves that the future artists are not poor and starving? We need to be exemplary, knowing that we are that, because the moment you are a steward for that. If you know it or not, if you're better or worse than another, it doesn't matter. But that's your function. That is your function in this thing. And that's not like a job. That is a vocation, like a priest. That is, you are that. It's almost religious.
Would you say it's still important for an artist to be on the top of their game and to constantly work and improve their art? Or is it simply just enough to make your mark and say, well, there it is? There's
Your words in God's name. Yes, you never stop, but you have to get first the bug, like I do. I mean, you can feel I have the bug to know what my purpose is and what art is. Like the power of art. And I didn't invent it. I made not the rules. I just unveil and say, I'm looking. And if the artist stops looking at where he needs to look, which means inside, not outside, and then see how the outside reflects the inside. That's where the artists need to look, and not looking how he can manipulate it, a static system that's not living. Art is a living thing. It's a reflection of a living process of in non-physical and physical. Non-physical, you get an imagination or inspiration, and you create out, and you play with that, and you say, oh, I think it's yellow, and I said, oh, I mean, there's no you know writer's block, I think, because the easiest way to do it is going into the moment. Also, it's starting to focus, and focus need the artist can focus on, yes, on the moment. And when I say, for example, you have a writer's block or I have a painting block, if I would have that, I don't have that, but I've never had that. But I know, I coach people and I say, you start with any project with allowing yourself, making the choice for a minute, 2 minutes, 10 minutes, 30 minutes. That's up to you, whatever feels right. Because you need to learn yourself. You cannot create something when you don't know yourself. And you say, let's say I have a picture, canvas, the color is red. I'm getting red, and I'm taking my brush and feel the red. What is the right red? And then whatever comes to mind, I made it. And if nothing comes to mind, I made a dot. I make a dot. And then I said, what? And then look at it. And then I might be saying, no, I'm not into our painting today. I leave. And then I come back and look at that painting. And then I will say, oh my God, that needs yellow. Oh my God, that needs to be another orange or something. Because your higher aspects, your non-physical, are talking to you. And that's what we're doing, basically. The real artist, not the artist that wants to just copy some stuff, and making money. And there's nothing wrong with that. But I'm saying the value is in that absolutely fresh new creation. And that's why art always needs to be honored by humans. Because everything that is constructed for, like building a high rising, or creating a park, or creating anything in the world, coffee maker or whatever, is based on a constriction. That means it's like going in the world and selling something to sell it. So you need to nurture the limitlessness of creating for creative sakes, art creating for art's sakes, not for I'm doing this, I'm doing that. No, you don't do any, you create for the creation's sakes. And that's the highest, absolutely highest that you come, because you have also, as an artist, no reference. You need to work out of no reference. That's the power. That's the endless power. It's hard to sell that. I know, I'm not saying it is easy, but if you want to take advantage, if you want to, there's a reason why you are in art. And you all say, oh, I make a lot of money. That doesn't matter. It's a reason you are an artist.
Yeah.
And because otherwise everybody wouldn't be an artist. And more people become artists because they prefer to be human than being in a static system.
Yes, I think as you're describing that process of consciousness and awareness, it makes us realize that if you value yourself and the importance of what you're creating, then maybe others will value you. But if you plug into simple economics of the system, it really eventually turns you into a beggar, where you're starting to give discounts and you're begging for sales, and the fact that you've created a work of art becomes irrelevant.
It's not irrelevant. You also need to know that you don't have the power. You don't have the power to create it in a system that goes by a product. It doesn't matter how honest you are in creating. I mean, the chance will be higher that somebody, another human being, recognizes that process. And however that the art looks or whatever is secondary. They just feel that energy, and they say, wow, I feel it in me that this is a creation. But they also have to understand that a creation, once it's created, it is a project, a product. But the thing is, there was something that you said, that was a key word. Uh, um, the realization. It's the realization of. I think therein is the is the value. Uh, People don't realize it. It's like if I get an iPad, a MacBook. I think people, the humanity looks at art like they're looking to use a MacBook book as a placemat. Literally, they say, we don't know, it's a placement. It's the greatest placement. It's aloe, it's beautiful. I could have, it's a placement. And perhaps there's here and then some people that open that little lid. Oh, there's a light too. I can use that as a night light. That's how I think humanity looks at art. And if we can change that as in our being, then people will all of a sudden be interested in art. Because what I tell you is interesting, and what you tell me to our conversation is totally not art history. Oh, let's see what Michelangelo did. And what do you think that is so nebulous? Like that the last Da Vinci sold whatever, or, on Sotheby's. And I said, do you think Da Vinci cares if he, after his death, sold for 80 million? It is so irrelevant to Da Vinci and to his art. It is only relevant to the system because it's demand. It's a commodity, like you said. It's a commodity, and the only way out of commodity is creating truer worth, and also for yourself, because you're not, when you create really, you also get your self confidence up. You get your judgmental stuff up because you can't be judgmental in art when you create, and you get all this stuff. So it's a growing process. Like you can pay $100,000 for a self-realization course, or you can create art. If you're aware of art and not of the market, it's the best self-realization that you can ever find. And make notes and document your process, and listen, for example, to us or my podcast, to hear other people. I get a tremendous pleasure out of Talk Art. That podcast, the English podcast, and of the two guys, it's amazing because artists tell about their creation process, and I see where I'm correct, and I haven't found any faults what they experience and what I write in the Smart of Art. And they're more on the wisdom, they're more on our side, but they're kind of in the middle. So if you ask me how to sell, I would listen to that podcast too, because it is, so where I am only on the scientific side, so but understanding of artists, as the artists understand what they're doing, they are more in the middle between that, the wisdom of art, how it touches you and whatever, and how to get, they're talking to Tracy M and also, talking very famous artists too, Jeff Koons. And it's interesting what they have to say about the creation process. And I think that's where, we're missing a tremendous, the mentoring is almost gone because the market took over so much, and time is money, and you don't even want to mentor. You don't see the value. So basically what we're doing here, we're opening the eyes and say, look, you're already rich. You just don't see it. You are already a MacBook. You have all the functions, but you use it as a placemat, you know, and it's much more, you know.
Michael, tell us briefly about your own art. What you're working on, what you're creating, a little bit about your style.
Okay, that's a great question. So I'm not painting right now, even though I create digitally some stuff. I paint digitally because I need to paint. I need to do that. Um, I do still some music. I am right now. I'm so into the writing this because the flow comes in from the writing side, and it's so exciting to me. So I'm writing on my sixth book, for which is the creativity, how we with creativity, how we can change, adapt systems to serve humans versus humans serving systems. Um, and that is so engaging, but so much comes in. And I said that before, every artist, and I was doing everything. as you saw my bio. Every artist is a multi-dimensional artist. You're not just a one-trick pony, and which also reflects your limitlessness. That's why artists are good in social media, because they can apply their creativity and how to think, but only there's no demand. See, the key for us humans, for artists, is the demand or the payment. It doesn't even matter if humanity knows this is our essence foothold of being human and not having this race extinguish. It shows you the optimal, it's the most objective history teller art. Nothing is, because it's not the system that writes the history. When you look, even the system says this was a horrible time, and then you look at 1900s at paintings, where is the horrible time? You know what I mean? So it's the most objective stuff. And when people realize that, then the artists can, till they really own their power. And actually, we can start with human potential, because basically all that is artists are the beginner of any human potential, not making systems better or worse, or having system navigation from both sides, the management and the navigation. That's life force that is wasted on that. Our life force should be created in how can we have a more intense, beautiful experience. When you see something, I see something. When we talk, that's why healthy discourse is one of the, I think, the second human superpower, because I'm not looking at being right or you and see, but artists have an easy with that, because it's not in art, in the energy of art. It's not about right or wrong. Because every artist, and nobody's an artist if they say there's right or wrong. For me, nobody, if there is no right or wrong, that just is. You don't have to buy it. You don't have to be it. That's why I say to every art lover, you can go in a museum and be indifferent to a painting. That doesn't mean you don't know art. That doesn't mean anything. You run into humans that don't tell. You're not talking to every human on the street, right? It's just, and I think that's by talking that we right now we doing human potential work, because we expand our existence. Yeah.
Yeah, Michael, it sounds that you are actually optimistic about the human condition. Right now, we seem to be facing such a lot of negativity. It's I think that's another function. Well, it is one of the big functions of artists, is to show people the alternative life that we can have, a life of awareness, appreciation of beauty. It would be great.
That's our job. It's
Um,
inherent our job.
yeah.
It's not. We can choose it. We can accept our heritage, or we cannot. And I think understanding is a big thing. And artists, because they've never defined themselves, they weren't looking for values in art. It's not. I can't blame the artists that they're all for a generation poor, because we have never started. If I would have written that book when Da Vinci was alive, it would be a total different story. You know what I mean? So if I was aware, I think the world wasn't right. My consciousness wouldn't gotten that if I was alive at Da Vinci's time. So we often learn from adversity. I mean, I was a sick child as a little, and I mean, look at my adversity. Sick child, dyslexic, couldn't work in anything. It wasn't except what always outside. And I found this by default. I wasn't saying, it's almost like reality slammed me into the art and art community. It wasn't like, oh, I chose to be an artist. And then I chose that later.
So let's have a look at a few things that you like. Let's start with books. What is your favorite book?
The Power of Now, Eckhart Tolle, the
Eckhart
Power of
Tolle.
Now, because it is exactly what art does. He described all the things that you read this. It's almost like, what? Okay, I read a book. What can I do? I said, start creating art. Then you can experience the book. And it's the best, it's the most accurate description. He defines humanity, how humans function and how you function with your mind constructs and all this stuff. And it's not a deep book. It can be deep, but you just listen to it. Get an audiobook and listen to it. But it is completely parallel to creating art. And also he talks about the beauty also a lot and aesthetics, and that's why this is absolute. And I'm not a reader because I'm dyslexic, so I'm listening to all this stuff.
I think that's one of the attractions of we as artists. When you're creating art, you're living in the now and nothing else matters. And if you're appreciating the art of an artist, you're also in the now, in that moment, appreciating it. And that is, it is so critical, I think, to drag people away from the distractions of the media that is trying to keep us in fear or perhaps just off center. You know something's wrong, but you're never quite sure what. That's just part of the system at work.
That's why my 6 books
So,
is about the system. You have to be it's a consciousness, because on the other side is also creativity. We wouldn't be, we wouldn't be eaten up into, that's the big destruction for humanity. We wouldn't be eaten up in media, in conditioning and all this stuff if we had a good relationship with systems, and people couldn't hide behind systems, and we could be distorted because the hiding, it creates the distortion. But it's all about creativity. If you understand creativity, and I think you will because I confirm what you confirm what I say. I confirm what you say. So that therein is truth. Because we are experience. Experience is wisdom. It's experienced knowledge. It's not knowledge. Knowledge gets old very quick.
Michael, are you teaching this to artists? Are you consulting with anyone at the moment, or you? And if so, how can they get hold of you?
They can get a hold of me. MichaelM.com is my hub. There's the books, the coaching, everything is there. The social media. So MichaelM.com, Michael with 2 L's. And there's my phone number and everything. So you can contact me. We can do, I really am interested in creating a new art education, because obviously this needs to be taught to people that are getting bitten by the bug and want to be artists first. It's also, I have the advantage with you that you already feel that you have the wisdom that I can just seal it in by you. You confirm me or you. But I don't want why going the detour. What the sad thing is with art education? Art education teaches you art history, which is relevant or not. It's up to you to decide that. You see, obviously you have pattern recognition in that, and which helps you in the learning. It helps you in the expression, in the market. But to find yourself, it doesn't do. And because it says, we do only representational, or the Royal Academy of Art is doing this, or this is us. So you're not finding self voice, you're finding what's successful in the system, because art education itself is a system. And the sad thing is that even if you get a Masters of Fine Art, there's two things that are said. First of all, from 100 people that get a Masters of Fine Art, as I know it from the German-speaking room because I talked to a professor there, there's a key that from 100 people that get a master degree of art, only 3, which confirms the 97%, 95%, 3 get a job in art. They are not going to be Jeff Koons. They're not going to be Damien Hirst. 3 people get a job in art. Now, the sixth thing about this is the second most income after cars in Germany is culture. Why these people don't add up in culture, that I don't know. But I can tell you The second biggest thing in the German speaking market is culture. So why wouldn't even, and this is what I'm saying, the ineffectiveness of art education, because you don't learn for the system, second and you don't learn for yourself to find. So when an artist comes out, and you hear that on Talk Art very often, so they come out and said, I didn't learn anything. I got my degree, and now I have a gallery that wants my art. I can't even fill out a form of an inventory form. See, at least in a business degree, that's why I'm saying it's more honest. In a business degree, I can look at the balance sheet. They cannot fill out if they get chosen, because it's already programmed in that subconsciously they're not gonna be chosen. So what's important is to sell the art education and not the human potential to lift our humanity up. It makes no sense. And this awareness is important, that people are aware, not that say, oh, the systems are horrible, academia is horrible. Academia is great when you know what you want to do and you have already found your medium, and you go and get it in painting, and you want to study that. You know your voice, and you want to study your landscape painting or portrait painting. There's nothing better than academia, because you get the whole history and everything. But the awareness, there's neither awareness from the systems nor awareness of the artists, or we are all unaware. That's why I say this crisis that we see is just because we are unconscious, that we keep repeating the crap.
Absolutely. Unconsciousness is such a big problem. There is such a tremendous thirst for appreciation of art. But I think so many artists need to step back and listen to some of your words and reconnect with what is their driving force, and find that value that they sense deep down, but bring it up again and live it. Don't be afraid.
You're beautiful,
Michaell,
beautiful.
thank you
What you do
very much. It's been a really interesting and illuminating chat with you. I thank you very much for that. I'm going to encourage as many people as I can to visit your website, get in touch with you, or at the very least, get inspired and find themselves.
That's all I want. Inspiring. Because you see in this talk, I actually, what I sell, I proved in this talk. We co-created something completely, and you can listen to all my podcasts. They're all different, because I don't prepare, but I co-create with this host. I'm not telling the host anything. The host doesn't tell me anything, but we co-create. And I hope people get that human potential that's in us when we just, the superpower of dialogue. I think that's why we go intuitively into so many podcasts now. This is, we freeing what's in us. We find back that we are one human race, not gender, race, or sexuality. And we are the stewards for that. We have to be the leaders for that.
No, you're right. Somebody has to just remind everybody, and you can do it in the smallest of ways, just in a conversation with somebody. Just dial things back a little, calm the emotions down, and just reconnect with what we have in common.
Michaell,
and that's my interview with Michaell Magrutsche, artist, writer, and inspiration. Don't forget to check out more about Michaell on his website at michaellm.com. That's Michaell with 2 L's, and find out more about his work and what he's up to, and connect with him on social media as well. Thanks very much for joining me on the Loosen Up Your Painting podcast. Be sure to subscribe. Visit loosenupyourpainting.com to hear all the other episodes as well. And you can also subscribe there or follow the podcast on your favorite podcast channel. And of course, on my YouTube channel, be sure to subscribe to this channel and you won't miss the next painting video or podcast as well. Until next time, cheers for now.